How's it going, man?
Coach, how you doing, man? Honored and privileged to be on this with you. This is exciting for me.
No doubt, man. Well, you're no stranger here at the AFCA. I know you spent a little time with us both at our spring virtual clinic last year, and then as well as our virtual convention that we had last month. So I do appreciate what you've done here for us and our coaches at the AFCA. And with all that being said, man, your virtual convention was awesome. It was about recruiting, and one of the things that stood out to me, not only there on that actual presentation, but just keeping up with you on social media over the years, one of the things that I find that always comes up when I hear you speak about recruiting is the word trust. And could you explain why that term is so important in the recruiting process and so important to you directly in the recruiting process?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, when you talk about it from a coach-player relationship, I think that's the foundation of any good football coach is having your kids trusting you and just not just on the field, but outside. Because, at the end of the day, for these kids, the one thing that we stress here is that football is going to end at some point.
Right.
So, getting them to understand the fact that, hey, it's okay if you don't go to an FBS school. Like the ultimate goal and the thing that we stress to our kids and our parents is the number 0. It's trusting that we're going to do our job to put them in the best possible situation to take the financial burden off parents. Now, obviously, Coach, you've been doing this a long time. You got your kid. We have 2 FBS kids sign an early signing period. Those guys really have nothing to worry about.
Right.
We have 15 other kids that are going to sign, by the end of the year, and they're going to be D2, D3, NAIA kids. So, what's the best possible thing for them? Do they understand the majors? Do they understand where they're going? And obviously in a COVID year, it's been pretty crazy. So I think building that trust with the players, and also too, it takes some time to build trust with the parents, especially me coming in 3 years ago. They knew who I was from coaching down the street, but they didn't know me. They didn't know my family. They didn't know what I was all about. So I think that's a huge piece of the foundation when you talk about the recruiting process.
You know what, another word that kind of ties into the term trust is honesty. And you made mention of your 2 FBS guys. That makes you look like a tremendous recruiting coordinator, but ultimately those guys just kind of do their thing on the field, make sure they take care of the academics, and that stuff kind of falls into place. I think where the recruiting coordinator makes hay is the other guys, right? The other levels. And I brought up the term honesty because sometimes that's a tough conversation. I've never met a kid. I've been in the coaching world for over 10 years, man, and I've never met a kid that walked up to me and said, I want to play Division III football at this program.
Mm-hmm.
All of them want to play on the biggest stage, and I don't blame them. I was the same way. How important is honesty in regards to that?
I think it's one of the biggest lost arts in the coaching profession. I think honesty is something that, to make our kids understand that, going back to the previous point is, you want to go where they want you to play. I had a conversation with one of our linebackers that's signing tomorrow. He called me last night and said, hey, coach, this school, blah, blah, blah. I said, when was the last time I talked to you, dude? Like 4 months ago. Okay. So I said, this school that you're going to sign with tomorrow has loved you up, given you everything you needed, virtual tours, things like that. I think getting that across to the kids, and also, and honestly, going back to the point of the parents, Coach, you've been in it a long time, man. Like there's parents that are there for the lack of a better term, really delusional, and it's kind of bringing them and roping them back in to say, hey, listen, it's okay that they go here. They're giving you this, right, and you have to pay that. And I think when you break it down, and that's the first thing I start off with at our recruiting meeting is, I have everybody that's sitting in the auditorium from freshmen to going to be seniors. How many of you guys think your kids are going to play Division I football? Everybody's hand goes up. Like, okay. Everybody goes down, and I have one parent hold their hand up. I said, that's maybe. It's 1%, and then less than 1% that get an opportunity to play on Sunday. So when you break it down into an honest, tangible perspective for people, and you leave no gray area, I think the more transparent you are, the less issues you're going to have as this recruiting thing goes on. There'll be some bumps in the road, but man, I tell you, honesty is the way to go. I'm a firm that's the New Jersey in me, Coach. I can't help it. That's the New Jersey in me, and that's who we are. And we're Jersey guys, as Coach Parcells would say.
Well, I mean, you said it's an art to be able to have that discussion, and obviously the jersey in you allows for you to be a little more upfront, honest, and blunt about it, and that's great. And the success at Palmetto Ridge has been extremely well in terms of recruiting. So, I'm sure there's going to be some layover here from some carryover from the previous question. But what do you kind of attribute to that success at your high school in regards to recruiting, not just yourself, your staff as well?
Yeah. So again, Coach, like you said, going back to those previous points, it's our relationships with college coaches, whether it's in the state of Florida, outside the state of Florida. I think for me, having coached in New Jersey for 14 years and made good relationships. I mean, Coach Flood that just took the O-line job with Coach Sarkeesian at Texas. I knew Coach Flood when he used to go to Rutgers spring practice when I first started coaching. So, we still stay in touch, and you build these relationships with these guys over the years, and kids need to understand that, because at the end of the day, they're going to trust your judgment, especially in the COVID year with everything going on, not being able to get out. And, obviously the lower level guys can come. We're a school that allows coaches to come in, NAIA D3 guys, to come in and see our kids if they want to. But I think building those relationships with those coaches, and then again, having the kids understand that, we're not going to lie to a coach just to get them an offer. Like that's not self-gratification for us, because that's going to end up burning a bridge down the road for another kid, maybe 2 years down the road. And coaches are mobile. Like I just mentioned, Coach Flood, he started at Rutgers, then he was with the Falcons, then he went to Alabama, and then now he's at the University of Texas. So, guys like that, that stuff, you want to be honest and upfront with, those coaches as well. And, having our kids understand that, there's a place for everybody to play. And that's one thing we make a stress point is, if you want to play football at the next level, whether that's going to a prep for a year, going to NAIA, going all the way up to FBS, there is a spot for everyone to play football. And if you're willing to do the work in and out of the classroom, we'll go to the ends of the earth for you to get you a spot. So I think really, and the social media piece that we've done a really good job with our edits and stuff like that, to be able to text college coaches. Like I was just on the phone with the running back coach from Virginia Tech, who's looking at a 22 and a 23, and we have everything on there for him: GPA, test score, height, weight, accolades, huddle link, and it's boom, it's right at their fingertips. So I think we've done a really good job expediting that process, as opposed to just emailing a prospect sheet. It's more technology based today than ever.
Absolutely. I always applaud the coaches that take the time to, kind of prepare themselves quite a bit. And I do understand, different states in the country and different areas and different levels, they all have to operate just a little bit differently. The head coach or the recruiting coordinator doesn't have as much free time, or isn't as educated in terms of, producing these type of materials that make it a lot easier for the collegiate coaches, a lot easier to kind of mass send over a group of kids, and the coach has, like you mentioned, everything at his fingertips. One last thing before we transition out of the recruiting and talk a little bit more X and O stuff. The COVID has been very unique in terms of how the recruiting process has gone. Once again, multiple levels have kind of different rules. I know some of the smaller schools have been able to continue recruiting per usual. What is something that you've ran into, that you've had to kind of negotiate or navigate, that has made it, I'm sure, interesting, but also fun for you?
I didn't know about this iMovie thing. My kids just turned me on to this iMovie thing a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So I'm 40, I'll be 42 in June. So like, I'm like a Tecmo Bowl, like, Sega Genesis Madden guy,
Right,
what I mean? Like, so, my son is a Bo Jackson guy. He has to be the Raiders every time we play Tecmo Bowl from Nintendo, which is a smart choice on his part. But one of the things that we really had to do was, so for about 5 of our guys, I did workout videos. So we took our kids out on the field, and one of our wideouts, he ended up craziest early signing period I've ever had to deal with. Ended up getting a call late and signing with Western Michigan. I did it combine style. So recorded him an interview, his height, weight, his hands, his arm length. We went on the field. We did routes that the coaches wanted to see. We timed them in the 40. And then for the secondary guys, same thing, height, weight, all that stuff, and put everything together in an iMovie, and then put that on Twitter and tag the coaches that want to see it. And I send it to individual coaches that wanted it. Because again, the FBS schools can't come, so, and then some of the D2 schools that wanted to see some of these kids, didn't have the budget to get down here.
Right.
So it was using that feature that really helped us. And out of the 5 kids that I did the iMovie for, 3 of them will be signed by tomorrow. So it's been a great tool that we've been able to use to help our kids and get the word out on our kids as well.
iMovie. That's awesome, man. Well, I'm going to make a very awkward analogy here. I think there's been some silver lining in COVID. I think a lot of people have found new ways to do things. And my analogy is grocery delivery and grocery pickup. I've stumbled upon that, and man, it saved me a couple hours a week. and so
no doubt.
That's something I'm going to move forward with, post COVID. Now I'm going to ask you this question. What it sounds like you stumbled upon, that seems pretty awesome. Regardless COVID or not, do you see yourself continuing to maybe do some of that kind of stuff down the road?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something, like you said, I think as coaches, we always look for the positive outlook on things. I think that this pandemic, although, obviously negatively affected some people in more ways than one, it's been crazy, but, it's made you kind of adapt to the situation and learn new techniques and new ways to do things. So, yeah,
right.
I definitely see, us still using that, especially, again, right now for spring football, we're still a full go with fall COVID protocol guidelines.
Right.
But, last year we completely missed it, like everybody. So as of right now, we're slated to start spring at the end of April, just with the same, guidelines and protocol that we went with in the fall. But yeah, I definitely see us using it again, no doubt.
That's amazing, Coach. Well, let's transition to some X and O's since you're approaching spring ball here. Now, you've kind of termed your defense the black shirt defense, and that resonates well with me. I used to be a Nebraska fan back in the day.
There you go.
With the black shirt defense still, and you also have this mantra: you didn't wake up to be average. How does having maybe something to rally around motivate your players to be better and to stand for something? Actually, I see your black shirt defense, skull and crossbones back there.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So I mean, for us, it's something that had started my last year in New Jersey. Actually, I had left my alma mater to go coach with a really good friend of mine that I actually played high school with, and he had taken a head coaching job and was struggling to find coaches. And he called me up. He said, "Hey man, could you really, I really could use your help." So I mean, I've known Luke for 20 years, and I went there, and they were really struggling to establish an identity and a culture defensively. They'd always been not very fundamental, giving up a lot of yards and a lot of points. So what I started doing was I started doing this defensive player of the week, and I went out and I bought 3 black jerseys. I bought a D-line, a linebacker, and a defensive back. So every Monday after we played, the coaches would choose the 3 guys Sunday when we met, and those guys would get to wear that black shirt for the week for practice. So that was kind of like a badge of honor. So that's how it kind of started. And then I came down to Florida in 2015. I went to Gulf Coast High School, and we were pretty good, but we needed something to kind of flip the switch. And ironically, defensively, we already wore black jerseys because we were the Sharks, and the Sharks, it was black. So that's where it kind of started and emulated, and then that kind of built into. We had the number 1 defense in Southwest Florida in 2016 when I was there. We ended up winning the first district championship in school history. And then coming to Palmetto, it was kind of the same thing as Howell in New Jersey. They had been okay, couple coordinators in and out here and there. And I went to my head coach. I said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And he let me run with it. And it got to the point where my first spring, I had my first meeting, and I introduced it to the kids. And we had about 45 kids in the room. And I told them, I said, "There'll be 23 here in 2 weeks. Like, you're not just going to come here and just because I want to play defense." And it was something where I'll give you a funny story. Our first week of spring practice, I had a kid that, our number one thing is no traders on defense. You need to run to the football. And I had a kid that was jogging, and I went over there. I pulled him to the sideline. I said, "Give me your jersey." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Give me your jersey." I said, and I went into the equipment room before practice. I got in 2 white jerseys because I already decided 2 kids were going. So I gave him his jersey. I gave him a white jersey. He went with the receivers. So the kids saw that, and their eyes kind of got, that like, whoa, like this guy means business. And from there on, I mean, it took us 3 years to build this thing, but it's all attributed to the kids buying into what we're doing. It was something that, we built with, honor, respect. Obviously, like you brought up Nebraska, that's where I got the idea from. And, but it was something, like you said, the kids could rally around, and it was something they could walk around with pride. And, they loved the skull and crossbones. That was something that we did with our stickers and things like that. And, it was just a really cool thing to see, especially culminate in the year we had this year.
That's awesome, man. And I really love the fact that you gave an example of you kind of putting it into place and having kids being able to look at that and see and say, man, I better get on it and I better stay on it. And the reason I mention that is I remember it's actually my first couple trips to the AFCA, to the convention when I was a very young coach. And man, I was a sponge. And a lot of people say that, and it's such a cool thing to say, but I was sometimes a sponge in such a negative way that I would go in there and say, oh, black shirt defense, that's a good idea. Let me write this down. I'm going to go install this with my kids. And, this is cool. Let me go in here and do this. And then all of a sudden you end up with a bunch of things and you don't really have any action with it. And that's really, really awesome that you're able to install that, believe it, have the black jerseys. Obviously you have to have some support from your the coaches on the opposite side of the ball when you're sending down receivers in the middle of practice.
Oh, yeah.
But that's great, Coach. So I do appreciate you kind of talking about that. Now I want to transition to talking about your virtual clinic with us last spring. I want to believe you talked about the 2-5. Was it the 2-5 defense?
Our nickel package is the 2-4-5. Yes, sir.
The 2-4-5. That's right. And it was perfect timing for you to come and talk about that, because I think that popped up in the national championship, a month or so before, and a lot of people kind of talking about it, but nobody had really dove into it, and you were one of the first coaches to kind of talk a little bit about what you guys do out of that package. Now, that brought me to some previous interviews that you've done in the past where you talked about not necessarily having a defensive structure that, if you go on a job interview and the guy says, hey, what defense are you going to run? Your stock answer isn't going to be a 3-4 or 4-2-5 or anything like that. Talk to us a little bit about what your answer would be and why.
I mean, I basically say, we're gonna put our kids in the best position to be successful. And I kind of go through, my evolution as a coach, going from a 4-3 guy. My head coach was a real good friend with Coach George Welsh at the Naval Academy in the University of Virginia. And we used to go to Virginia for spring football. And I was you're talking about being a young coach. I remember being 21, 22, going to UVA and meeting with Coach Golden and Coach D'Onofrio and those guys, and coming down here, looking at what we had at Gulf Coast and going to a 4-2-5, and then, kind of rekindling my relationship with Coach Don Brown, and then looking at what we had this year. And it just kind of was, I like you said, I'm not going to say that, hey, I'm a 4-3, hey, I'm a 4-2-5. I'm whatever our personnel dictates.
Right.
That's basically the best answer I can give is, this year we were fortunate enough where we were loaded in the secondary. So man coverage really never bothered us. Quarters coverage really never bothered us. We had 140-pound state place wrestling nose guard that was just a terror in our bear front. He did a heck of a job for us this year, and we had two really long stand-up outside backers, and we had a stud middle linebacker. So that it was just kind of like, hey, what defense best fits what we want to do? Stop the run, and bring pressure, knowing we could cover, and that's the Bear defense, and that's what fit us this year.
Absolutely. And how is the evolution of offense? How is that? That has to play some part. If you got 5 big refrigerators on the D line, obviously you can't go to a 5 down front or anything like that, just because of the evolution of offense. But you still do, especially at the high school level. You have such a variety of offenses that you see over the course of your regular season and into the playoffs. So how does the evolution of the offensive play kind of factor in?
Well, I look at our first 2 games. We played Naples High School, beat them for the first time in the history of our school, shut them out 38-0, and they were a split back veer team. So we, for 19 days straight, did the split back veer, and we did it out of an odd front. So then next week we get ready to play Laley, and they are wide open, empty, 10 personnel, motion. Now we have to go back and basically reteach our base defense. So, I mean, in high school, you could see a split back veer one week, and, in our first 4 games, we saw split back veer and the flex bone. So we were bouncing back and forth,
right?
Between spread and this, that, the other thing. So, for us, I think you have to be multiple. I think you really do, especially with the way, I think right now, what you guys got in Texas with Coach Sark, I think that's going to be the rage this year. I think seeing how 12 personnel and RPOs affect, I think we'll see a lot. It'll be a trickle down effect at the high school level. I think we'll see a lot of that, coming up in the next year probably. And you just got to be ready to make adjustments, and to me, as a defensive coach or as a coach in general, you can't put your kids in a bad position, meaning you can't just say, hey, we're going to do this. And then when they screw it up, get mad at them because that's on you. And you didn't prepare them for that. So how can you hold we hold ourselves to a really high standard. And I hold up my coaches to an extremely high standard not to do that. So I think getting them prepared, and that's why the bear front and the three high safety stuff kind of mesh well together, because that actually ended up being our nickel package this year was our three high safety stuff. And we pressured people out of it as we did the bear front. But again, to be as multiple as we could, but keep it simple. Keep it simple because if kids play defense, if they're thinking, they're playing slow, and that's when you give up a big play. We need to keep it simple so they can get downhill and play fast and be physical.
I tell you what, man, I know there's kind of been a surge over the last maybe decade or two of high school coaches that are coming into the collegiate level and having a tremendous impact. And you're seeing this actual trickle up effect of schematics. I know you mentioned maybe what Sark does offensively will probably have some influence on what Texas does, the state of Texas high school, and probably spread out a little bit. And I think, you definitely are right in that facet. But at the same time, man, what the high school coach is able to do, like you mentioned, 10-game season, you're seeing 10 totally different offenses. And it is the same, but not to the same degree at the collegiate level. And the fact as a defensive coach, you go in there, you have to keep it simple. You have less resources. You don't got graduate assistants breaking down film or quality controls and analysts. It's it's a 2 to 3 man show, and you have to get things turned around very quickly. And I always applaud what you guys are able to accomplish over such a short period of time and able to in terms of flipping the defense around. And then like you said, I think that's why you're seeing a big flux of guys heading to the collegiate level, because that is a special talent. But as we transition and we get ready for a close here, there was something that specifically I wanted to ask you, because not a lot of coaches come on here and would be willing to talk about this, or may have never even said this. You shared in a previous interview the importance of being willing to admit when you are wrong. And I just want to ask you, can you think of a particular scenario where you saw value in owning up to a mistake that you personally made?
Yeah, I can think about it. Kind of a funny story. We were getting ready to play Key West High School in our spring game a couple years ago, and they had shown nothing but flex bone offense. And we're preparing for the flex bone. And we had a linebacker here. He was all state wrestler, and would have been. He was going to get offered by University of Minnesota. He actually died in a car accident before his senior year, but. Colby, we come out and they come out and they run spread and they run jet motion and they're running power read.
Oh man! And
Colby, he comes. They go, coach. They go right down the field on us. It's like he comes off the field, and I tell this story. People ask about Colby all the time, and he comes off. He looks at me. He goes, Coach. He goes, I thought you said they were going to run the flex bone. He goes, that's messed up. So I had to pull the defense after the first drive. I had to pull the defense in, and I said, guys, listen, I screwed up. I was wrong. I said, this is how we're going to fix it. And I think if you do that, it shows the kids that you're able to admit when you're wrong. And I think that plays into the trust factor huge, because now when adversity hits on the field, those kids know, hey, coach is going to call a timeout and he's going to fix this. I think if you don't admit you're wrong, and I think those are the guys that at times they'll blame the kids when, again, the kids are going to do what you prepare them to do. So it's on you and your coaching staff to get them ready and to make timely adjustments when necessary. But that's one thing I laugh about that all the time. He just comes over, and Colby about 6'2", 210, and just looks at me down at me. I'm 5'9" on a good day. I was 5'10" in the program when I played in college. I've shrunk since.
That's right.
But he like, Coach, I thought you said they're going to run the triple option, and I just had to admit when I was wrong. But I think the more tangible you can make things for your kids, I think the more success you'll have. And again, you're going to get them ready for life. at the end of the day, like I said before, football is going to end at some point. So what are you doing to get these kids ready for life after football?
Coach, that's a heck of a note to finish on. I appreciate you sharing. And coaches that are listening, I highly encourage you to hop on our digital library, go back, check out his virtual convention talk on recruiting, his virtual clinic talk on the adaptability that he has in his defense of play. And Coach, before we let you go, please share your social media. If coaches got any question, they can reach out to you.
Yes, sir. Twitter is really easy. It's at Coach PJ Gibbs, Gibbs. DM me if you guys have a question. If anybody wants to talk recruiting or anything like that, I'm more than happy to get on and Zoom. And we're all in it for the same reason. We're in to help kids. And Coach Price, I appreciate it, man. This is like a checklist, man. This is awesome, brother. I can't thank you enough.
Well, we appreciate you. You guys make the AFCA what it is. So we definitely appreciate you, man.